Welcome to the ESI Africa studio. This morning I am speaking with Thava Govender, who is the president of the GO15. Welcome, Thava.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thava, yesterday in the conference session here at African Utility Week, you mentioned a study that is going to take place in terms of addressing the future of the grid operators and the system worldwide. Why are we going to be looking at a study at this point in time?
So Nicolette, one of the issues that we've been focusing on is the issue about renewables integration. And most of the renewables are in the distribution network. So there's been a lot of talk about joining the distribution system operator with the transmission system operator. So we've been having that debate, but there's no consensus. So one of the issues we're looking at is to do a study to say how would a transmission system operator, a distribution system operator model look in the world. So from South African perspective, the European and American countries are ahead of us. So they're going through a lot of learning. So we've asked for this study so that we can learn from what's happening there, all the pitfalls, all the mistakes. We don't want to repeat that in South Africa. So when that study is done in October, we'll bring it back to South Africa and present it to the various stakeholders as an independent study. And hopefully that should give some guidance in terms of how an independent market system operator should function in South Africa.
What is the time frame of that study?
Well, I came president in October, and when we chose the three areas, knowing my term's only 1 year, I put a limit, and I said by the steering board meeting, where all the chief executives of the transmission companies meet in October, that the work should have been finalized and presented in October 2018.
Right. And you are on track with that?
Well, we have a meeting in May where we're going to get feedback, but so far, what we've seen so far, we are on track.
Fantastic. And the three areas that you are covering, do you just briefly explain those areas and why those areas?
So a lot is to do with the grid operators. So I spoke about the first one, the transmission model. The second one is about a reliable and resilient system. There's been a lot of talk about renewables being integrated in the grid, and with renewables, their very nature is intermittent. Is the grid resilient to the changes? So one of the studies is to make sure that when you integrate renewables, you have a resilient grid. We've heard a lot of issues in America now where some of the grid operators are concerned with the shutdown of nuclear power stations, that the grid does not become resilient. So those are one of the issues we want to address. And the other issue is about, I think, reliability of the grid. Considering all the issues we have where we have various technologies, I think it's one of the key issues that are bothering system operators to make sure that you have a reliable grid. There's a big difference between reliable and resilient. I think reliable is more about your key indicators, and resiliency is can you manage when 15,000 megawatts of PV disappear at sunset and you have capacity to pick that up.
So lastly, Thava, tell me, what are your sort of dream about how a grid operator looks in the future?
Well, are you referring to South African context or a worldwide context?
Let's look at the worldwide.
I think for me, I think from an energy perspective, the future for energy companies is not in the generation space. It's more in the transmission, the wires business. And I think the system operators are going to play a far more crucial role. And I think one of the issues that we are focusing on is to make sure that we become very resilient. I don't think we're quite there as yet, even though there's a lot of work being done. But I think there's a lot of studies, a lot of collaboration with international bodies that need to be done to give the world confidence that from a system operator perspective, that we've reached that point of resilience, which gives governments, especially governments, confidence that you will not have blackouts. And I think the hope we have is that the work we are doing gives the governments confidence that you can never give guarantees, but at least the work that we are busy with will give them confidence to say that the system operators are far more evolved than what they were 10 years ago.
And look into the future that everybody will have access to electricity.
Yes, that's one of the issues why I'm saying, the future is not in generation business. It's in the transmission, the distribution, it's in the wires business. If you take Africa as a continent, we've got a massive amount of generation, especially in South Africa, but you don't have the transmission infrastructure. You have electrification rates of below 50%. And if you just develop the transmission infrastructure, you'll be able to get electricity to people that never have had that before. So I think that's one of the dreams of my side as well, is to have an integrated super grid in Africa. Starting off on the bottom, I believe a lot of work's being done by colleagues that are in the Gulf states that are also a member of Geo15. So if they start from the north and we start from the south, we'll meet somewhere in the middle.
An excellent plan. Thava, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Thank you for watching. I'm Nicolette Pomba van Zyl, editor of ESR Africa, broadcasting from the African Utility Week studio.